Well, dudes, we've got another great and esteemed guest with us in the bakery today. We've got Michael Anthony with us. Michael is the co-founder and CEO of CourageMatters.com. If you haven't been there, dudes, go check out this website. It's such a neat resource. Got a lot of great stuff to go check out. Go check that out. But Mike's here today, and Mike's past is kind of an interesting one. He grew up and escaped several kidnappings, and as an adult, he survived a bunch of brushes with death. And man, Mike, it already sounds like a build up to what we're going to get into today in helping men with their mindset. And so I can see the build up here, but just to go a little bit further into who you are, he's spoken to tens of thousands of people globally, and he's an expert in showing people how to stop limiting themselves so they can become unstoppable. I like that. He and his works have also been on major media outlets, including Fox, CNN, ABC News, CBN, and so many, many more. So, dudes, you can see why we're excited to have Michael Anthony with us in the baker today. Michael, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, great to be with you guys, a bunch of dudes. Hey, good to be in the bakery, needing some bread for you guys. Great. Congratulations on your podcast, too. It's fantastic. Honored to be with you.
Well, it's our honor to have you, and we're really excited to get some of this knowledge that you've had, and that we've had the opportunity to listen to you speak on some YouTube videos and some of the other major media outlets that you've been on, and I really love a lot of
Mm-hmm.
your work. And one of the
Thanks.
newest things that you have coming out, or that is out now, is your book. Here's How,
Yeah.
and I want to talk to you a little bit more about that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's your new mindset and emotion makeover book. And tell us
Mm-hmm.
why you wrote it and why it's important.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it might be like drinking from a fire hose for all of the dudes listening right now. So we actually have a cheat sheet that they can get if they want to get it, so that you can sit back and just relax as you're listening, soak it in, and then get the cheat sheet. They just email us info@couragematters.com. So if they email me at info@couragematters.com, we'll send them out the cheat sheet. And this way they can just put things on cruise control as we dive in. I wrote Here's How because I refer to myself sometimes as a recovering pastor. I spent about 20 years in pastoral ministry, and I'm an entrepreneur, kind of a serial author. And I think there's a big pandemic in our society right now where people confuse what for how. So whether you go to a motivational event or you read a book on how to change your life, at the end of it, oftentimes you find out, you know what, I really don't know how to change my life. That didn't really show me how. Or it happens a lot in church services where you go, and I think it's like eating cotton candy and popcorn, where it feels good at the time and we're all on the same page, at least we think we are. But then we leave and it's like, you know what, I really don't know how to implement any practical changes in my life to do what I know I need to do. So we often confuse talking about what. Does that make sense? We confuse talking about what as if we really helped provide practical information on how to change our lives. So my new book is called Here's How, because I've spoken to a lot of places. I just was back from speaking to 3,000 people in the Washington, D.C. area, entrepreneurs. A lot of what happens is I'll speak at an event, right? And people will get all fired up, but I just scratched the surface. So I wanted to write a book that would be like spending a weekend together in a morally honorable way, if I could say, like spending a weekend together where we're drinking coffee, eating donuts, imagine that, and talking about mindset, how to change it, how to change our lives. So that's what Here's How is about.
Oh, I really like that. And this is kind of right up Anthony's alley. If you really know Anthony and a lot of his philosophy and the way that he thinks about life, and this concept, this framework that you have built,
Mm-hmm.
that really aligns with a lot of what Anthony has. But I like that a lot because I think in today's day and age, we're given tons of information about what we need to do, what's good for us, what do we not need to do, but the execution of that is
Mm-hmm.
the hard part, right? I think we
Sorely
know.
lacking, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's lacking. And I think this is one of the reasons why we're so polarized as a society, because it's the implementation of what we want to do that we often stumble on. So you can have a conversation with somebody and you can think you're on the same page philosophically, you might be, but then the execution is quite different.
mm,
For example, a lot of my emphasis and focus is on affirmations, doing positive affirmations and doing them the right way because you're doing them anyway. You can't stop self talk any more than you can stop eating donuts and drinking coffee, right? You just can't do that, dudes. You
struggle's
can't
real.
stop your self talk,
Mhm.
right? Yeah. You cannot stop your self talk. Everybody talks to themselves. The issue is changing your self talk because you can't try to stop breathing for 5 minutes. It's impossible. Breathing is an automatic thing. Self talk is an automatic thing. So it's not a matter of whether you are talking to yourself. You already are. And if you don't think you are, you're kidding yourself. You're just not paying attention to what's happening at a subconscious level with your thinking. The issue really is whether or not you can change. And I believe that you can. I'm a huge proponent of this, whether or not you can change your self-talk. And as a guy, right, having a podcast for guys, we are always talking to ourselves. I mean, guys have visual representations of a sexual nature that are just off the charts compared to women, for example. I mean, if you compare the average number of sexual thoughts that a woman has compared to the average number of sexual thoughts that a man has in a given hour, there's literally no comparison. So dudes are way off the charts on that regard. So in the same way, self-talk, we're all doing it. We're all doing it. It's the execution of what we want to change in our lives that we can tend to differ on. And what I try to do is bring people onto the same page to find common ground and to say, hey, listen, we're all doing self talk, we're all doing affirmations. It's just a matter of whether they're positive or negative and whether they're moving you forward or whether they're holding you back. And once somebody comes to terms with that and says, you know what, Mike, you're right. Now show me how to do that. Because if you master that, you totally change your life. If you master your self talk, your entire life will be changed. And that's true if you're an atheist or if you're a person of faith. It's true. We're all talking to each other. It's a matter of how we're talking to ourselves. It's just a matter of how we're doing that.
Mm.
Like, I was, pleasantly surprised, man, whenever I heard you were gonna be a guest on here because, I do believe in setting your mindset and truly, you have to change your mindset if you wanna see some changes in your life, and, I don't know if I'm sure you've read or learned this, but, they say, start your day off with, gratitude and just think of
Mhm.
everything that you are truly happy about, and that
Mhm.
could change your whole, day.
It does change your whole day because the truth of the matter is that there's a thought void that will be filled. Our subconscious minds are always at work. And it's called subconscious because these are thoughts and even commands. Your heart is being sent messages to continue to beat. Your lungs, they're being sent a message to continue to breathe, to digest. And these are things that we're not aware of. That's why it's called subconscious. But there's a void in our minds in regard to our thinking, and it's either going to be filled with gratitude or ingratitude, right? I like to say that your gratitude determines your altitude. So if you're struggling with your motivation, if you're struggling with moving forward, if you feel like you're stuck, if you feel like you're worse than stuck, the first place to go, Anthony, is a gratitude check to see where you're at in regard to gratitude because your conscious mind, that's really what I want to focus on, is not capable of focusing on a negative thought and a positive thought at the same time. It is literally impossible. Try to do it right now. Try to think about something like maybe your financial situation or a relational situation that causes you angst or a need or a deadline that's coming up that's of a negative nature. And then simultaneously try to think of something that excites you. It could be a great relationship, it could be about finances coming in, the same exact things that I'm talking about. Your mind is incapable of thinking about a positive thought and a negative thought at the same time. One always takes precedent. What we need to recognize is that each of us is the determining factor on which we're going to focus on. And that takes training. It takes training. You don't come out of the womb automatically trained with an excellent mindset, with a disciplined mindset. It's something that you have to learn to develop, just like you develop muscle, just like you develop endurance and cardiovascular training. You have to learn how to train your mind, because stinking thinking, as I refer to it, will always create a rotten reality. So you're either going to have gratitude or ingratitude, and you get to determine what it's going to be. And that's going to determine your altitude. It's as simple and yet as significant and complex as that.
I agree. And that you've said a lot there that I really would love to sit and just unpack that. I feel like we could have a whole show on what you just said
That's
because
why I wrote Here's How. Now you
you're
see
right.
why I wrote Here's How.
It makes
Yep.
complete sense. But I'd like to back up a little bit because I
Mhm.
know you've shared with us that you've you've escaped the grips of kidnapping a few
Yeah.
times as a kid, and there's been
Mhm.
a few times where you've asked God to take your life, and
Mhm.
um, I think that those situations definitely play a big part in who we are and who we
Right.
become, right? And so I'm
Absolutely.
curious how those things in your life have shaped you and made you into Michael Anthony today.
Mhm.
Would you share that with us?
Well, I appreciate that. Most of the lessons that I learned in life, I've learned through my own failures. And I've just made a decision years ago. My wife and I have this agreement that whenever one of us recognizes that we've wronged the other, and I have a great relationship with my wife, she's phenomenal, my wife, Janet. Um, we made a decision a long time ago that whenever one of us recognized that we were doing something wrong or hurt the other one, we would immediately ask for forgiveness. Like apologize and ask for forgiveness. Like apologizing is not always the same as asking for forgiveness. When you say to somebody, I'm sorry, that's one thing. But then when you ask the question, you give them an opportunity to respond. Would you please forgive me? And then that person has to make a decision. And so that humility, because humility is simply agreeing with the truth, that humility has helped us have an unbelievable marriage, a great marriage that I would never want to exchange for anything else. And so for me, it's simply a matter, dudes, of being honest with myself. There are a lot of people who are deceiving themselves into bondage. They're deceiving themselves into setback after setback after setback. It's only when you get really honest with yourself that your life changes. So for me and our whole family, we went through an unbelievable betrayal filled with lies and deceit and gossip and slander against our whole family from a church, from an actual church, which is ironic because a church is supposed to be everything but that, right? But I think it's the unintentional hypocrisy where there are a lot of, and I can say this as a pastor, I was in pastoral ministry for nearly 20 years, and it's the honest truth. Many churches are trying to get people to follow a Jesus that they're not following. And it's one of the reasons why younger people are not interested in institutionalized church. And that was one of the key catalysts, the betrayal, the backstabbing, the secret meetings, the secret things that were happening by the leadership of that church, where people would ask questions and they'd say, well, we can't go into the details, but trust us. Mm, it sounds very cult-like when you think about it, right? That set of circumstances is actually what led me to ask God to take my life 3 times. I'm not proud to say that, but again, I'd rather be honest with you dudes. I'd rather be honest and tell you the truth and share from my mistakes than try to put rose-colored glasses on it. Imagine a bunch of dudes with rose-colored glasses uh, and try to blow smoke up somebody's nose. That's what led me to really do a deep dive into the relationship between thoughts and emotions and doing some fundamental soul searching and changing, because the typical things that we tell people in religious circles is pray more, read the Bible, trust God. And I'm all for that. I'm all for that. But oftentimes that's as deep as we go. And that shallow answer it really is a shallow answer. I think it's actually insulting to the architect, to
Mm.
our creator. That's as much as we can do. We know more about how the human mind works now than at any other time in history, but you might as well be living in the dark ages if you don't know how to work your mind. So that's what led me to really get into not only understanding about mindset and emotions, but also now mentoring people and speaking about it. I just over the past month spoke to two large groups, about 3,000 people in two different places. One was in Louisville, Kentucky. One was in Washington, D.C. area. And I was speaking to them about mindset, changing your emotions, because unless you get your emotions on board with where you want to go in life, your emotions are going to hold you back. Your emotions are either the weak link or that firm foundation in your life.
I'd have to agree. And I like what you said there, kind of talking about faith, because there's one of my favorite passages, and I know what book it's in. I know it's in James, but I couldn't tell you the verse. You might be able to tell me the verse, but the verse is essentially this: that faith without works is dead, right? I mean, you've got to put in the work, and faith is an act of doing something, right? And so, yeah. So I like the way you put that.
I know you talk a lot about changing our subconscious thoughts
Mhm.
and the emotions they create. Have you ever heard about or been into some of the meditation stuff where they were with based around frequencies and kind of um, maybe playing those when you're asleep to
Mhm.
help kind of align your subconscious or change directions?
I'm not surprised about those things, Anthony, Cameron. And the reason being, we are created by an intelligent designer. And when the scriptures say we're fearfully and wonderfully made, that scripture, which is often misunderstood by a lot of people of faith, was written after the fall. So when you look at the book of Genesis and you talk about, and you might be an atheist listening, listen, I'll never hold someone's belief against them. I'm just trying to have conversation here and just share and find common ground. And we can have some common ground here. When you look at the book of Genesis, the creator, the architect says it was good. It was good. Like we were created good. And then the fall happened. And a lot of people of faith were like, well, now in me, no good thing dwells. So I can't do anything good. And it's all up to God. But the irony is that you're actually going to be judged by the architect for the things you did. And one of the things that Christians look forward to hearing when they face their creator, the architect in person is, well done, good and faithful servant. So it's not true that you can't do anything good. You can't do anything good to save yourself. That's what that's in a reference to, but you're fearfully and wonderfully made. So when you bring up, Anthony, frequency and the ability to change your subconscious mind, that shouldn't surprise us at all. Because again, we know more about how the human mind works now than at any other time in history. It's the most complex thing that, whether you believe it from an evolutionary standpoint or from a creationist standpoint, it's the most complex organ in all of existence, the human mind. So we're constantly finding things out about it that really affirm the truth that we're fearfully, wonderfully made, just like beyond the ability to comprehend, just completely beyond the ability to comprehend. So none of that surprises me. I mean, when I'm teaching people about mindset, I teach them about facial expression. I teach them about posture. I teach them about stating things in the present tense. I teach them about using their imagination vividly. And most people who have problems with that are people of faith because they think, well, that sounds like psychology. But when you stop and think about it, what is psychology and who created it? Who created that mind? Because again, you're going to worry, and we have no problem with worry because worry is spending time, energy, and imagination on a reality that doesn't exist. That's what worry is. Spending time, energy, and imagination on a reality that doesn't exist or a future that doesn't exist. So why are we okay with that?
Mm.
But we're not okay spending time, energy, and imagination on a reality that does not yet exist, but will exist because everything begins in the mind. I mean, we're sitting here and having a discussion today because you guys reached out and said, hey, would you like to have a discussion on our podcast? I said, yeah, I'll get some coffee and you guys bring the donuts and we can do that. But everything starts in the mind. So it's just a matter of whether or not what you're entertaining in your mind is really honorable and going to move you forward because you're going to use it anyway. You might as well use it for good, right?
Absolutely. 100%. So I'm curious. I'm sure in your book you've got some some cues, some triggers, some ways to
Hmm.
start this process of changing your mindset and getting
Hmm.
on a a good self-talk,
Hmm.
getting good healthy habits to change the way that you frame things. Can
Right.
you share? I don't want you to give away all the secret sauce because I want our
Hmm.
listeners to go out and check out the book, but can you
Hmm.
touch a little bit on that
Hmm.
and kind of your way of thinking about integrating some of these positive thinking techniques into
Sure. Well, again, they can get the cheat sheet. I share some of this in the cheat sheet when they email me info@couragematters.com. I share some of that in the cheat sheet. I didn't tell you guys about this, but we also just came out with this. It's called the Motivation Journal.
I saw that on the website. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the Mindset Journal, which is 2 pages a day, 90 days, and different mindset teaching quote lesson every single day, and it comes with videos and stuff where, again, if you haven't figured it out by now, I'm into mentoring and I like helping people. So this Motivation Journal, it's with a D, as in David, Modi. It all begins with sitting down and thinking. Like, you asked a great question. What are some things that people can actually start doing? And I'd love to give away the secret sauce, and I'm going to do it right now. The way to change your life is just to start by thinking about what does my ideal day look like. You'd be amazed at how many people have gone through their life and not taken the time to sit down and craft their ideal day. What does it look like when you're going to bed? I'm not talking about just the time that you go to bed and the time that you get up. What do the last few minutes look like before you turn out the light? What do the first few minutes look like when you get up in the morning? And then everything in between, because um, when you design your ideal day, then you're giving your subconscious mind, because of a conscious decision you're making by designing it, you're giving your subconscious mind something to shoot for, because you become what you focus on. You become what you focus on. So when you're out of focus, anything goes. So the first step to a changed life is changing your ideal day. It doesn't mean that you can always hit it, but the idea is to have a target that dramatically increases your chances of hitting it. So for me, for example, I go to bed pretty early, get up pretty early. I go to bed typically between 9 and 10 o'clock at night, unless I'm out speaking someplace. And I'm up somewhere sometime between 3, 5:30 in the morning. And just kind of the way I'm wired. Everybody's different. But first thing is gratitude, where, Anthony, you brought that up as well. But gratitude done in a particular way. I'm a big fan of doing affirmations the right way. And there's a template that you can use. And I'm going to give you right now. I'm not talking about a written template. I'm talking about, even though you write this down, it's what you use to help your subconscious mind get on board. And this is what I use. I'm so happy and thankful now that. I am so happy and thankful now that. And that's the way I begin nearly every positive affirmation. Why? First of all, it's present tense. I am, not I'm going to. People do affirmations wrong when they talk about them in the future. I'm going to, or I am going to, I will. That's future tense. I will is just beyond reach. It's like that song Tomorrow, from the Annie musical, Tomorrow, you're always a day away. I will does not bring it into the present tense. So you start by saying, I am. It's a declarative statement. Even if you're not, what you're doing is you're tricking your subconscious mind. And listen, your subconscious mind's already telling you you're worthless, you're a loser, you're not going to succeed. She's going to say no. I mean, I had to convince myself when I first saw my wife. I assumed that she liked me until she told me otherwise. That's how I got up the nerve to ask her out. And it worked. So your subconscious mind's always telling you she's going to say no. You're not going to get the interview. You're not going to get the raise. You're a loser. See, you did it again. All this negative stuff, which is not necessarily true, but you believe it.
Mhm.
And because you believe it, because you focused on it, it actually ends up becoming reality in your life. So why not trick your subconscious? It's been playing games on you anyway.
Yeah.
Trick it for good. So you say, I am so happy, which is an emotional state, and thankful, gratitude, now that, and here's the signature one that I use. I'm so happy and thankful now that money, friends, and influence come to me in increasing amounts on a continuous basis from a variety of sources.
Amen.
So one, amen. So in one fell swoop, right? When I'm mentoring somebody, that's the very first one that I teach them. And I teach them to do that repetitively. The first thing when they get up in the morning, I teach them to write it out just like that. I'm so happy and thankful now that money, friends, and influence come to me in increasing amounts on a continuous basis from a variety of sources. And I teach them to do that at night before they go to bed. And then I teach them to do it all through the day, to write it out on an index card, put it in their car. Don't look at it when you're driving, but when you first get into your car, you're reminded, put it on your mirror in your bathroom, put it in your kitchen, everywhere, because you have to use overwhelming force with your subconscious mind to get it to comply. We're looking at what's happening in the Middle East right now, right? And you're seeing a massive buildup of artillery and military uh, components and ammunition for what's going to be probably a ground invasion, air, sea, ground assault that is designed to have overwhelming force. Because the number one rule in military campaigns is if you go in half-heartedly, you're going to have higher casualties and potentially lose what you otherwise wouldn't if you had overwhelming force. So the subconscious mind is the same way. You've got to get your face involved. You've got to get your posture involved. You have to get your voice involved. You have to get your imagination involved to vividly imagine it. Like, it's not just repetition where I'm so happy and thankful that now that over and over again, I'm so happy and thankful now that I'm so happy and thankful now that. It's not just a repetition that your subconscious mind is going to change. It's by doing it the right way. So I encourage people to write it out at least once a day, to say it out loud with all the components that I just shared, and to vividly use that irreplaceable mind of yours to focus and to see it as already being done. And if you think that's psychological nonsense, then how's that negative psychological nonsense that you're putting up with working out for you, right?
Right.
You're going to do it anyway. I'm showing you how to do it the right way. So I'm so happy and thankful now that, and then you insert whatever the truth is that you want to become reality on the tail end of that. I'm so happy and thankful now that, for example, with my wife, though we've never had to do this, I teach this to people with bad relationships. I'm so happy and thankful now that my relationship with so-and-so is fantastic. I taught a couple that executive couple, they bring in like $3 million plus last year. Their gross was 3.5 million, 3.6 million. And the very first thing each of them said to me individually when I was interviewing them, I want a totally new marriage. So the very first thing that I did was I introduced them to an affirmation. I'm so happy and thankful now that my husband and I, my wife and I, have a deep, rich, rewarding relationship where we listen to each other, talk to each other, and are on the same page. And they actually, in the Zoom mentoring call that we had the following week, they said, this is like unbelievable. They said, this is too good to be true. They were doing it from Monday through Thursday. In the morning and the evening, they wrote it out, put it all over their house. And every time they had a doubt about their relationship, they would recite this the way that I taught them to do it, using their imagination, saying it out loud, facial expression, because you got to have your face. And I'm doing this. You guys might not see this because we're doing video right now. When I said that, Cameron started smiling because I was smiling. You can hear it in my voice. It's hard to resist a smile. Your subconscious mind has to make a decision. Hey, that's the look on Cameron's face when he's happy. So is he anxious or is he happy? And your subconscious mind has to then make a decision. So when you write it out, when you say it in the present tense, when you involve the emotion that you want to experience, when you express gratitude, it makes it, each one of those makes it increasingly impossible to resist. So when you stand up with a posture that's like one of success and victory, hey, when you walk hunched over, for example, it sends a message to your subconscious mind that you're actually defeated, discouraged, depressed. Right? It's not like you're first defeated, discouraged, and depressed, and then you walk like that. Sometimes you're walking like that, and it works both ways. Feel discouraged, defeated, and depressed. Now, how do we know that? Because that's what we know about how the mind works now. So you might as well use it to your advantage. So when you stand up with a posture of victory, you put a smile on your face, you say it with passion and conviction. Now I'm going to say it the right way. I'm so happy and thankful Now that, see how I emphasize that with my voice? Your subconscious mind, it pays attention. So overwhelming force by using each one of these angles and components is what drives these things into your subconscious mind and makes you a believer. And at first, it seems very strange that you're doing this. First, it seems like, and it's weird. Well, would you rather maintain the strangeness and the weirdness and the number that your subconscious mind has been doing on you, or would you really like to change your life? It seems it's like miraculous. And that's what this couple said to me. They said, this is too good to be true. I said, it's not too good to be true. It's so good that it's true. I've taught you how to use your mind in a right way. Most of us just don't know that the mind can be trained. It's like a muscle. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
We got a saying here in the South. Well, you're in South Carolina, so you're here in the South. You know, the saying is, you keep doing what you've done, you keep getting what you got, right? And
absolutely.
And so, if you want something to change, you've got to put that one foot in front of the other, and start subduing your mind into submission. So, yeah, I like that.
Deep thinking is a lost art these days. People don't think; they're told what to think, right? Sheeple, they're told what to think. They don't think deeply. Here's the fact: when you look at something right before you go to bed, before you turn the light out, what happens is that's a conscious decision. That's why you shouldn't be on your device right before you go to bed. The blue light's also negative in regard to deep sleep and creating deep sleep. You go into an alpha, beta, theta, different sleep stages, different stages of brain waves. This is factual. This is not theory, because we know, because they've done studies on it, alpha, beta, theta, brain waves. And when you look at something, listen to something right before you go to bed, and then it's lights out, what's going to happen is that as you pass through those brain waves and you get to the brain wave that's associated with deep sleep, right before that, it's the semi-deep sleep state. That's what influences your subconscious mind. And what will happen, and if you don't believe this is true, guys, as you're listening, try it with a book that you read. Like, really pay attention. Don't let your mind wander right before you go to bed. And this is how when I speak before audiences, I do it without any notes. I just do it because I think, first of all, why should you listen to me if I need to look at a cheat sheet? That's my personal opinion, right? If I haven't done it myself, why would I be up in front of a large audience telling them what to do, telling you what to do? And people often say, man, that's unbelievable. How do you do that? So I say, well, for the simple reason that I'm not giving you theory, I'm giving you stuff from my own life. And so that's how I memorize and I commit to memory things that I say before a live audience. I look at it over and over and over again in the evening. And then when I wake up, it's right there. So if you don't believe that your subconscious can stew and brew on something this way, this is how you get it into your subconscious mind. These affirmations, for example. Look at something, read a book, read a page before you go to bed. And when you get up in the morning, you'll be amazed at the retention that you have. That's how I committed to memory large passages of scripture, just by reading the Bible before I went to bed at night. Last thing. And I didn't do it intentionally. I just did it because I wanted to end my day by reading the great book, right? And what I found is that when I wake up in the morning, I could see the page. I could remember the chapter and the verses of where that was. And so I triple dog dare anybody listening right now, if you want to get your subconscious mind involved in anything, right? Because you become what you focus on. Look at it, listen to it right before you go to bed, and then turn off the light. And if you do that repeatedly, you will give your subconscious mind food for thought, because it's just operating like a vacuum in a sponge. Your subconscious mind is just picking up what it sees, what it tastes, what it smells. And then it plays it back later on. I mean, how many of us have had thoughts that were just like, man, where did that come from? I didn't ask, I can't unsee that. And then your subconscious mind like replays something at a later time. It does this with things that have been said to us.
Yeah. I can see some pretty dark things in my mind, man. I can. Yeah.
And your subconscious mind doesn't ask you for permission on when it's going to play that, does it?
No. And it actually, it comes in at the most inopportune times, I feel like, than anything. But,
Mhm.
Michael, we've asked you a lot today, and thank you so much for joining us because I feel like we've got a wealth of knowledge that we're definitely going to have a part two of because I feel like there's more that we can definitely unpack that we talked about today. But
Mhm.
before we let you go, there's two things I want to ask of you, if you don't mind.
Mhm.
First, can you
Sure.
just remind us where we can go get that cheat sheet?
Mhm.
Because I want to go get it, and actually I've
Oh
already
yeah, I'm good.
downloaded it. So, but I want our audience to be able to go and find that again and have an opportunity to know where that's at. And lastly, you've already shared a lot of advice with us, but we ask every single one of our experts if you could just give your top notch advice to share with dudes, what would that be?
Mhm. Mhm. Wow, great question. Well, first, the cheat sheet. Just email me info@couragematters.com. Info@couragematters.com. Be glad to get that out. It's totally free. The advice that I would have for a guy as a guy who's been around for a while, probably most of your guys that are listening are probably younger than me, which is awesome. I love building into the lives of younger guys. You've got to learn how to master your mind and master your thinking, or it's going to master you. And I would encourage you to not throw in the towel or to think that this is all there is to your thought life. Listen, if I could learn how to change my thinking as a matter of desperation, right? I asked God to take my life 3 times. He actually did. He actually did. Not the way I thought it was going to happen, but he took my old way of thinking and taught me. And I learned through study and research how to think differently through the things that we've talked about. I would remind you as a guy that you will never rise above your level of thinking. Everything in your life begins in your mind, for better or for worse. You might as well learn how to use it for better. And it takes practice, it takes discipline. You'd never go to the gym 3 or 4 times in a week, try that for 2 weeks, and then say, hey, I didn't gain much muscle. I'm out of here. You know that no pain, no gain. If you're not consistent in the gym, you're not going to get results. And at first, you're lifting your form and doing curls and bench press and shoulder press and leg press and calf raises. Your form is terrible at first, right? But as you learn through consistency and persistency, you lift heavier and heavier weights. You have better and better form because you train yourself to be disciplined. And then lo and behold, you start getting washboard abs. You start getting your pec starts to develop. Your biceps start to develop. Your triceps. You're lifting greater weights, and it's all because of consistency. It's the same thing with your mind. If you don't learn how to train your mind, and you can, you will struggle emotionally in life. Most guys have a dad wound. Maybe this isn't our part two thing, right? My dad threatened to kill me at one point. He really did. We had we were not very close for a long time. So I'm speaking again from experience. If you don't get your thinking straightened out, your emotions are going to run rampant. And your emotions are really the reflection, the mirror of what is really happening in your thought life. So I would encourage you as a guy to really lean into developing your mindset and developing and being consistent in getting that mind on board with where you want to go in life, because it will respond just like your muscles will respond to weights and your cardiovascular system will respond to cardiovascular training. Your mind at first is difficult. It's like a wild horse. It really is. But if you insist and you persist, you can change your thinking. That will change your emotions. That will change your habits and your motivation. And that's what changes your life. It all begins in the mind. And you can do it. You can do it. You need to persist and you need to believe in yourself, right? You need to believe in yourself.
Man,
That's great. It's great
yeah,
advice.
absolutely. Mike, I got to tell you, I feel like I'm a better person than I was 40 minutes ago than when we started this conversation. And
You guys are awesome. You guys
well,
are awesome.
it's not lip service, man. I really do mean that. And I subscribe to everything that you just said. And I hope that our listeners do too, because it's something that I think today in today's day and age, it's becoming more and more of a thing to focus on one's mental health and emotional health. But when it comes to men, it's definitely something that is still somewhat stigmatized. And so to have
Yes,
an avenue like this, guy, dudes, go check out the book. Here's how. Go find Michael Anthony online at couragematters.com. He's got a wealth of information. I know you've definitely picked up something today that is going to be helpful in your journey to becoming a better dude. So again, Michael Anthony, thank you so much for joining us again in the bakery. And 100% we're having you
absolutely.
back as soon as
Yeah,
possible.
thanks for coming through.
Cameron, Anthony, great to be with you guys. All you dudes, keep looking up, man. There's no place else where looking. Keep moving forward. Great to be with you guys, really.
The pleasure's been
Thank you.
ours.